Good evening, everyone. This is Life and Works of Rizal, Chapter 5, presented by Rosny Eder, Karen Rose de la Cruz, and yours truly. So here is my assigned topic: Rizal life, exile, trial, and death. We have here Rizal's message of farewell. Jose chose to spend quiet moments in the prison chapel after the death penalty was read aloud. He turned to writing when he was left alone in his cell. So Jose chose to spend quiet moments in the corner of his prison cell. So in order to fight the boredom and loneliness to his loved ones, he turned to write different letters, especially when he was left alone in his prison cell. So during on December 29, 1896, he wrote two letters. The first one is for his brother Pasiano Rizal. So, inside the letter, he writes how sorry he was he know that his brother Pasiano Rizal because his brother Pasiano Rizal, he knows that he suffered a lot of circumstances for him because he is the one who fight or he is the one to receive the punishments for Jose Rizal. So that is why he felt how sorry he was. It is also says that the fruit of his labor is better. So because Brother Pasiano loved so much for Jose Rizal, so that is why Jose Rizal also felt how sorry he was deeply for his brother. Because every time the burden or the punishment that Rizal Jose was for, his brother Pasiano take it. So, the next letter is for his best friend, Dr. Ferdinand Blumentritt. So, he sent regards and a book as a one last keepsake. So, this book is a copy of Rufino Baltazar Hernandez entitled Arithmetica. So it is written in Tagalog and Spanish because his best friend, he heard that his best friend wants to know the different languages in the Philippines. And he is the one also the first friend of Jose Rizal. So that is why during his before his execution, he sent regards. He sent a letter with a book entitled Arithmetica. So, in early morning of December 30, 1896, he wrote to his family. So, inside the letter, he bid farewell and asked and begged for the forgiveness from his family. Because every time, if there is if there is punishment for Jose Rizal, his family take it so that this so that Jose Rizal will not so that his family would not be suffer anymore because of him. So next letter, in the same day, December 30, 1896, at 5 o'clock or 5:30 a.m., he wrote letter to his father. So he asked forgiveness for sorrow and toiling for his education because it because he said it is better to die than to receive such punishment without any exact evidence. So that is why he asked his father because his father kept his work because his father hard worked for his education in order to have a better education, especially when he was in other country. So for the last moment, he wrote to his mother, Senora Doña Teodora Alonso. So for her, the words seem to have failed him because as a child, especially he is the one who is have special care from Senora Doctora Theodora Alonso. So that is why I think this is the reason why he felt the words for her, because it is the love, because he felt the love of his mother. So he didn't want his mother to suffer from loneliness, for sorrow, for him, because he knows that his mother wants to see him before his execution, and it is not, and he didn't want to suffer that. He didn't want to suffer to that too much for his mother. Let's tackle about Rizal's tomb. It is his request. So first, bury me in the earth. Then second, put a stone on top. Third one, a cross. Then the last one, a name, birth, and death. So this is only the four that Rizal's request to his family when he was, or when after his execution, when he was buried in the earth. Then his family can do also the fence, the grave. So he asked also, and he requests also no anniversary celebrations. Then he prefers to bury in prefers Paang Bundok, or a common cemetery to the north of the city, or it is also known as a Paco cemetery because of Paco trees in that area, and it is also the common cemetery where most people, or the columnades, buried during that time. So next, we have here the Mi Ultimo Adios. This is his final poem. So he wrote this on December 29, 1986. So Mi Ultimo Adios, there are 14 5-line stanzas, unsigned, untitled, and undated. So Mi Ultimo Adios, he put under the alcohol cooking stove. And in the morning, on December 30, 1986, he gave and revealed to his sister Trinidad. He revealed that there is a letter under the cooking stove. So, it is translated into English by Charles E. Derbyshire as My Last Farewell. So, inside the Mi Ultimo Adios, it is very, or you can feel a loneliness. You can feel the love of a young person, Rizal, or a patriotism, a love to his family, a love to his country. So this is where the Mi Ultimo Adios taken from. Or I think Mi Ultimo Adios, he inspired it from his love to his country, so that the people in the Philippines, or the Filipinos, can actually be awakened from the way on how the Spanish threat to the Filipinos. But in a big part of Mi Ultimo Adios, it is talking about the love to the country, to his family, to his loved ones. So that is why it is translated into My Last Farewell, because he shows, or he showed through writings, his patriotism and loyalty to the country and to the people of this country. We have here Josephine Bracken. She is the last woman of Jose Rizal. So, Josephine Bracken is the adoptive daughter of George Stauffer from Hong Kong, which came here, or came to Dapitan to seek for Rizal for his eye treatment. So Jose Rizal, he is physical attracted to Josephine Bracken because she is one of his he is one of his lover which has a beautiful physical appearance. So he begged for forgiveness for the sorrows he had caused her. Minutes before he calmly faced the firing squad, he requests the authorities to marry Josephine. So Spanish authorities allowed Rizal to marry Josephine, but according to Josephine Bracken, he married at 5:30 a.m. on December 30, 1896. So after that, he gave her a copy of Father Thomas a Kemps's De la Imitación de Cristo y Menosprecio del Mundo, or The Imitation of Christ and Contempt for the World, with the dedication to my dear and unhappy wife, Josephine, December 30th, 1896, Jose Rizal. So this book is a Christian devotional book, and it is also a keepsake, a book that will keep for Josephine Bracken. So I think this book is one of the important copies or the important books of Jose Rizal had. So she became a widow. She became a widow at 20 because after that he married. So it begins with the execution of Jose Rizal. So that is why it is stated that his dear Josephine Bracken is unhappy after that his marriage. And now, let's face the execution and death of Jose Rizal on December 30, 1896. At 6:30 a.m., it is the starting time of Jose's journey to death was signaled by a trumpet blast at Fort Santiago. So when we hear this trumpet signaled, so we can feel the nervous, the trigger of our body. So we feel the shaking of our body when we are, or when we are on that time, or we are on that time or the self of Jose Rizal. But Jose Rizal walked calmly with his defense counsel, Lieutenant Luis Tabiel de Andrade, on one side, and two Jesuit priests, Father March and Villa Clara, on the other. So Rizal wore a black suit, a black derby hat, black shoes, a white shirt, and a black tie. So his arms were tied behind his back from elbow to elbow, but the rope was loose enough to allow his arms to move freely. So it is not tightly to his body, but because they allowed Jose Rizal to move his arms. So they gave a little time, or they gave a little freedom to his arms to move freely when they need the hands of Jose Rizal, the arms rather of Jose Rizal. So if I am that case, I think I feel the nervousness, the shaking of my body on how I can cope this, how can I cope this kind of death that I know I was to be dead, and a few minutes later. So I think this can be trigger that I couldn't be myself anymore this time. If I if I am the one on that position of Azurizan. This time, we arrived at Bagumbayan. A crowd lined the street from Fort Santiago to the Plaza del Palacio in front of the Manila Cathedral. He made few observations about Corregidor, the mountains of Cavite, and the Ateneo College. So he noticed the curious faces of people lined up in the street to see the death of the martyr. So Jose's request to be shot facing the firing squad was denied. During this time, Spaniards insisted that Jose is not that the innocent one. They pushed Jose Rizal that he was the one who had this guilt, or the guilty one, to spread the rumors about the way and how the Spanish government treat the Philippine country. He wants this country to be free, or he wants the Filipino people to know what happened or what kind of the Spanish government is. This time, his Pasiano brother know that Jose is the one to fired by this time, so he works or he, he made some actions to block all these demonstrations, these planned demonstrations of Spaniards. But the firing squad was made up of Filipino soldiers with Spaniards behind them. So there were 8 Filipino soldiers facing Jose Rizal, who fired Jose Rizal, but there is Spaniards behind them in order to secure the Filipino soldiers if there were not to shot Jose Rizal to death. So this is the way of Spaniards when the Filipino soldiers denied their obligations or their as a work assignment during this time. So the bets were steady and showed no signs of excitement or fear. So these beats are the Jose Rizal heartbeats or the pulse of Jose Rizal. While the doctor of or the Spanish doctor Paul's Rizal, so he says that it is steady and showed no signs of excitement or fear. So if we were the one of a, if I am the one that time, I think I don't know how to face this firing squad or this execution. I think I am not in my own self, or I will be called crazy this time. So it was promised that his head would be respected. A bang! Blindfolded and Eric Rizal turned his back to receive their bullets. As the bullets struck, he turned and fell face upwards, receiving the shots of grace that ended his life. So this time, Jose Rizal never feared death. So he received this bullet struck. He received that he turned his back to feel the sunrise of the day, or he wants to feel the sunrise of the morning, but she received the shots of grace that ended his life. So the Cadiz March, a Spanish national anthem, was played, which should have reminded people of a broken institution. So Cadiz March is a symbol that Jose Rizal executed illegally during this time. So Dr. Felipe Ruiz Castillo, a Spanish military doctor, measured Jose's normal pulse, demonstrated that he did not fear death. So Jose Rizal, even his death, until his death, he did not fear. He is very brave, brave, brave. And his last words were consummatum est, or it is finished. So above the cacophony of drums was the cold-blooded command Fuego, which took Jose's life at 7:03 in the morning. So fuego means fire. So it is the time to fire towards Jose Rizal. To be sure, Spanish soldiers didn't take away during this time. So he they blocked the way in order to in order to ready to fire also to those Filipino soldiers who didn't want to fire Jose Rizal. So this is his last word, consummatum est. So it means that it is finished. He finished this journey of his life without any fear of death. During this time, during his death, there are a lot of vivas, happiness that we can hear or they can hear around it. So Rizal's death was met with joy by his enemies and heartbroken by his loved ones. There are a lot of people rejoiced this time during Jose Rizal's death, but his loved ones, those loved ones that he loved the most, were heartbroken. So he died as a hero and a martyr for Philippine independence in their eyes. So imagine, he died as a hero. He never feared death. He never. Even his falls, it's normal. He is very brave at this time. And now we arrive the afterlife in memory of Jose Rizal. So after Rizal's execution, his body was first brought to San Juan de Dios Hospital in Intramuros and later buried in an unmarked grave in Paco Cemetery. So the remains were placed in a plain box. No visitors allowed into the cemetery while the interment was taking place. So even his family, the Spaniards didn't allow them to be close to the coffin of Jose Rizal. So the exact location of the interment was kept secret. So the Spaniards didn't want the family to know where the Jose Rizal's body. They didn't want them in order to have this safety plan to encounter the family of Jose Rizal, because they didn't want the body of Jose Rizal to go to the family of them. But upon finding his burial site, his sister Narcissa bribed a grave digger to mark the grave with the initials RPG. So it is a way to avoid, or it is a way so that the Spaniards didn't know that the family of Jose Rizal, especially his sister Narcissa, secretly following them. So a marble slab provided by them bearing the initials of the full baptismal name Jose Protasio Rizal in reversed order. So this is also the plan, or the counter-attack plan of Jose Rizal's family. So after 4 days, or 2 to 4 days, they take the body of Jose Rizal to, to their home. So this time, they feel that they are a family as a whole, because they take the Jose Rizal's body after how many days, without knowing the Spaniards, without knowing the Spanish government, that they take the Jose Rizal's body. So next, this is the picture before of Jose Rizal's, where they buried Jose Rizal's body. So this one, the difference between the 1920s, the Rizal Monument during the 1920s, then during the 2012. And the 2014, there is a photo bomber behind the back of monument, of Jose Rizal's monument. So there is a big difference between the three pictures. So that's all. Thank you. Have a good night.